This case has so many twists and turns, it makes your head spin. What is going on? Good morning, everyone. I'm here today. And thank you for liking and subscribing. It does help with the channel. This case is from California, and it involves a young mother who was murdered along with her unborn child. The suspect in this case is her husband. Let's take a look at what happened to Laci Peterson. Laci Peterson was 27 years old and lived in the small town of Modesto, California. Her husband, Scott, was an executive at his family's fertilizer business. On Christmas Eve of 2002, Laci told her sister that she was having contractions. She wasn't due to have her baby for another month, but when your water breaks, you can't really wait. She said she would call her if anything happened. On December, Laci went into labor and texted her sister, "I think my water just broke. Call me." Her sister called her husband, Scott, and he came home from work. A little after 6 p.m., Scott called 911 and said his wife had gone into premature labor and he needed assistance. He also asked for an ambulance, but they were not needed. When the officers arrived, they noticed that there was blood all over the house and the garage floor. They also noticed a large amount of Christmas wrapping paper on the floor. It appeared as though someone had attempted to clean up blood with a mop. Officers interviewed Scott, and he stated that Laci was 7 months along and having contractions. He then left the residence to go check on some farm animals. When he returned, Laci was on the ground, kneeling like she was praying. He said she then got up, went to the bathroom, collapsed, and miscarried in the toilet. Scott said he then helped his wife out of the bathroom and she went to bed. In the morning, she got up and everything seemed fine. But later that evening, she began bleeding again heavily. She started shaking and convulsing. She spit up blood and then she went into a coma. At that point, Scott said he called 911. Paramedics arrived and transported Laci to the hospital. She was placed on life support. On December, Laci was taken off life support and she was pronounced dead. Doctors performed an autopsy and discovered that the baby was viable, meaning it could have lived outside the womb. The cause of death for both Laci and the baby was multiple sharp force injuries. It appeared as though someone had stabbed Laci in the chest and abdomen area. She also had defensive wounds on her hands and arms. At the time, police believed that Laci was the only victim. However, that changed on April 13, 2003, when a fisherman located a body on the bank of the San Joaquin River. It was the couple's 8-month-old fetus, still encased in the umbilical cord. The baby was wrapped in a plastic tub, and inside that was a blanket and a towel. The baby had been wrapped very securely. It was almost like someone didn't want it to float away. Police also discovered some women's clothing nearby. That clothing belonged to Laci. Police interviewed Scott again. This time they asked him if he killed his wife. He said no. He agreed to take the police on a ride along so they could see where he worked and where he and his wife had been that night. Detectives said Scott seemed kind of detached while he was talking to them. He didn't seem to be that upset about his wife's death. Detectives noticed that Scott's story had changed a few times, so they brought him in for questioning. They wanted to ask him some more specific questions. Scott said he understood his rights and he agreed to talk to the detectives without his attorney present. He said he knew that he would become a suspect in the case, but he wanted them to know the truth. He told the detectives that he and his wife had been trying to get pregnant for a long time. Finally, Laci became pregnant, but soon after he realized that she was going to miscarry. One day in November, Scott said he found a box of documents in Laci's closet. She had written down the names of people she wanted to notify after she gave birth. In the box, he also found a journal. Scott said he didn't want to read the journal, but he did. He read how Laci had written down her thoughts about him. He said she wrote that she wanted to divorce him and that she was going to move to Florida and be with one of her co-workers. Scott said he was devastated when he read that. He thought about killing his wife, but he never acted on those thoughts. Then Laci became pregnant again. She kept the baby, and Scott said he was happy about it. He said he was trying to be a good husband and a good father. He took care of the house and tried to make things right between him and Laci. Then Christmas Eve happened. Scott said that Lacey went into labor and miscarried. He cleaned her up and helped her into bed. She seemed fine in the morning, but later that evening, she began to shake. He said he called 911, and when the paramedics arrived, they took Lacey away. He said he knew Lassie had been stabbed, but he didn't do it. Scott said he had never been unfaithful to Lassie and he would never hurt her. He loved her. As he was leaving the room, the detective asked him one last time if he killed his wife. Scott said, "No, I wouldn't hurt her." Then he stopped. He turned around and looked at the detective and said, "But I did kill the baby." The detective immediately placed Scott under arrest. At first, Scott refused to talk to the police about what happened to the baby, but then he changed his mind. He said he was cleaning up blood from the bathroom and Lacey was sleeping. He said he woke up in the middle of the night and had a panic attack. He said he didn't know what he was thinking or why he did what he did. He put the baby in a blanket. Then he put the baby in a plastic storage container and he disposed of it in the river. Detectives searched Scott's house and found several inconsistencies. His story just didn't add up. For example, there was a lot of blood in the bathroom, but very little blood in the bedroom where Lacey was supposedly sleeping. Also, Scott's clothes were extremely clean when the police arrived. There was no blood anywhere on them. The prosecution believed that Scott killed both Lacey and their unborn child. They said that he acted alone. The defense claimed that Lacey was the one who killed their unborn child and that Scott just helped her dispose of the body. They said that Lacey killed the baby because she was going to lose her perfect figure. The trial lasted 4 months, and on April 2004, Scott was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder. The jury said he intentionally killed both his wife and their unborn child. He was sentenced to 25 years to life in prison. On appeal, Scott's attorneys argued that the prosecution did not prove premeditation. They said that Scott had no motive to kill his wife because she was going to have his baby. However, the appeals court said that you don't have to have a motive to kill someone. You don't have to have malice to kill someone either. All you have to do is act with conscious disregard for human life. The California Supreme Court denied review of the case. Scott is currently 45 years old. He will be eligible for parole in 2027. What do you think? Was Scott guilty? Do you think he killed his wife Lacey because he didn't want a baby? Or do you think Lassie killed the baby and Scott helped her? Let me know what you think in the comments. If you want to watch another video, please watch the one on the screen. Thank you for watching. Thank you for liking and subscribing. It does help the channel, and I'll see you on Monday.